Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. This time, we're tackling AI, but not the kind you see in sci-fi movies. We're talking about the AI that's already woven into our daily lives. You know, the stuff we might not even realize is AI.
Yeah, it's sneaky like that, isn't it?
To help us break it all down, we're going to be looking at a conversation between two podcast hosts who decided to test out some AI in their own lives, which I thought was a pretty cool way to approach it.
Definitely. I mean, it brings the whole AI thing down to earth and makes it super relatable, you know?
Exactly. And these hosts, they really went all out. They were using AI for everything, from editing photos to even curating music playlists. Actually, that reminds me, one of the hosts was using AI to make himself look like a movie star in all his pictures. I was like, really? But it turns out it's not quite as simple as that.
Right. He kept saying he used AI to sharpen his photos. But that got me thinking, what does AI sharpening even mean? Like, is it just making existing features, I don't know, more defined? Or is it actually changing someone's face to fit some, like, standard of beauty?
It's a little unsettling when you think about it that way. Like, everyone uses those filters on social media, but the sound's way more powerful and maybe even a bit, I don't know, manipulative.
Exactly. And this is where things get a little, ethically tricky. If we're constantly seeing these AI perfect images, does it mess with how we view attractiveness and put pressure on people to live up to these, like, impossible standards?
It's something to think about, that's for sure. So moving on from AI photo editing, let's talk music. The other host in this conversation was raving about this AI playlist generator that seemed to know his music taste better than he did. It was like having a mind-reading DJ who always picks the perfect song for your mood.
That's a perfect example of how powerful machine learning can be when it comes to predicting what people like. Basically, these algorithms are crunching a ton of data. They look at your listening history, what other users with similar tastes enjoy, even stuff like your location and what time of day it is, and all that goes into creating that personalized listening experience.
So no mind reading involved, just like really good math.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I get it. It does feel kind of magical when a playlist nails your mood perfectly.
Totally. But one thing that kind of stuck with me was how these hosts were a little worried about AI knowing too much about them. One of them even said it felt like having a nosy neighbor who's always watching. So does all this personalized tech come at the expense of our privacy?
Now, that's the million-dollar question. It all boils down to data privacy in the age of AI. See, these AI systems, they feed on data. The more they have, the better they get at predicting our behavior and customizing things to our liking. But that brings up the whole issue of who controls all that data and how it's being used.
It's like that saying, right? If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So are we basically handing over our privacy in exchange for a perfectly curated playlist or, a slightly better selfie?
It's definitely a trade-off we need to think carefully about. Transparency and control for the user are key. We should absolutely have the right to know what data is being collected about us, how it's being used, and most importantly, the right to say no thanks if we want to.
Totally agree. We got to feel like we're in the driver's seat when it comes to our data, not just along for the ride, Oh, speaking of technology, these podcast hosts also talked about AI writing tools. One of them even used AI to help write a thank you note. I mean, I use spell check, sure, but a whole letter. That's next level.
It shows you how far we've come with natural language processing, or NLP, as the cool kids call it. Basically, it's the part of AI that focuses on how computers understand and create human language. And this has led to some seriously impressive tools that can write anything from emails and articles to, even thank you notes.
So are human writers going extinct then? Will robots be penning all the novels and screenplays in the near future?
That's the question on everyone's mind.
Right.
While these AI writing tools can be amazing for, beating writer's block, brainstorming new ideas, and even sprucing up our writing, I actually think they'll be more like partners than replacements.
So more like a super-powered editor working alongside us, not taking over completely.
Exactly. Think of it as a team effort. The AI can handle the technical stuff like grammar, sentence structure, and even suggest different ways to say things. But the heart of it all, the unique voice, the human touch, that still needs to come from us.
Well, that's good news, at least for those of us who write for a living. But it sounds like AI is already pretty embedded in our lives, especially when it comes to things like entertainment and creative stuff.
It is, and it's only going to become more so as time goes on.
So where else are we seeing AI popping up these days? What's next?
Well, I've been seeing a lot about AI in, serious fields, like healthcare and finance. It's not just fun and games anymore. This stuff could actually change people's lives.
You're absolutely right. Those are some areas where the impact of AI could be huge. Take healthcare, for example.
Yeah.
We're already seeing AI being used to look at medical images like x-rays and scans to help doctors diagnose things. It can even help predict how patients might do and even personalize treatment plans, which is kind of wild when you think about it. Yeah, it's like having, I don't know, a super smart medical consultant right there with the doctors. That's amazing and all, but it also makes me wonder, are we relying a little too much on machines to make these big decisions about our health?
That's a good point. At the end of the day, we got to strike a balance. We want to use AI's power, but we also can't forget about human judgment and empathy in healthcare, right? But the potential benefits are huge. Imagine AI helping doctors find diseases super early, leading to better treatments and better outcomes for patients.
Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty incredible. And what about finance? I know some people get a little nervous about algorithms messing with their money.
I get it. But the truth is, AI is already playing a big part in finance, especially when it comes to things like trading, catching fraud, and figuring out risk. Algorithms can sift through tons of data, like market trends, economic indicators, even what people are saying on social media. And they use all that to make predictions and do trades super fast.
So it's like having your own personal Wall Street whiz kid, but without the, emotions and shady dealings.
Well, let's not get carried away. But the point is, AI can process all that information and spot patterns that humans might miss, which can be really useful for managing risk and maybe even getting better returns on investments.
I guess even if I don't totally get how it all works, as long as it's making my money grow, I'm happy. But speaking of things I don't understand, what about self-driving cars? I've seen them being tested around here, and it's a little freaky watching a car drive itself with no one behind the wheel.
It's definitely a trip. But the tech behind those cars is pretty amazing. It shows just how far AI has come. These cars use a whole network of sensors, cameras, and algorithms to figure out what's around them, make decisions, and drive safely.
I know they say it's safer in theory, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to hand over the wheel just yet. Maybe when the tech is a little more, proven.
I totally get that. It's a big leap of faith to trust a machine with your life, even if the numbers say it might be safer. But, shifting gears a bit, one area where I'm really excited about AI is education.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more. I've always felt like the way we do education, the traditional system, it's kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. And that doesn't always work for everyone.
Exactly. And that's where AI could really shake things up. Imagine having personalized learning platforms that adjust to each student's needs and how they learn best. AI could help figure out where a student is struggling, give them custom-made lessons and feedback, even suggest other resources to help them succeed.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, like a personal tutor for every student. But wouldn't that mean collecting a ton of data about each kid? Doesn't that raise some, privacy red flags, especially with young kids?
You're right to bring that up. Data privacy is super important, especially in education. Any system that's collecting student data needs to have really strong privacy protections built in from the start. Parents and students should be in control of what information is collected and how it's used.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about AI changing how we listen to music, how we diagnose diseases, manage our money, even how we learn. That's a pretty wide reach.
It is. And it's important to remember that AI is still kind of in its early days. It's getting smarter all the time, which means we can expect even bigger changes in the years to come.
That brings us back to that question we were talking about earlier. What role will AI play in our lives, say, 5 years from now? It's tough to predict the future, but judging by what we've seen already, it seems like AI is going to be even more intertwined with our everyday lives.
I think so, too. We might have AI assistants that can, anticipate our needs, keep our schedules in check, maybe even help us make decisions, all in a super personalized way.
I sound like we'll all have our own digital butlers. As cool as that sounds, I can't help but feel a little, uneasy about becoming so reliant on technology. What if we lose some of our, human agency if we let AI make too many decisions for us?
That's a great point to bring up. As AI gets more and more advanced, we need to think about what it could mean for our independence and our ability to make our own choices. It's not just about convenience. It's also about making sure we can still think for ourselves, solve problems on our own, and make choices that, reflect our own values.
So it's not just about jumping on board with every new AI gadget that comes out. It's about being smart about how we use these technologies and making sure they're working for us, not the other way around.
Exactly. And that leads to a bigger question. How do we make sure AI is developed and used in a way that lines up with human values and actually benefits society as a whole?
That's a big one, but it's a conversation we need to have if we want to use the power of AI for good.
Totally. And it's a conversation that needs to include everybody, not just the tech geniuses and politicians. We all have a say in what the future of AI looks like.
I think those podcast hosts we were talking about touch on that too. They seem to be going back and forth with this idea that AI is both super helpful and potentially, kind of scary at the same time, like a double-edged sword.
For sure. Figuring out that balance, making sure AI is used ethically and responsibly, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges of our time.
I have a feeling we're only just scratching the surface of this whole thing. What else can you tell us as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of AI? It feels like we've gone pretty deep here, from those personalized playlists to self-driving cars and even AI in schools. But if you had to pick one big takeaway for our listeners, what would it be?
That's a good one. I think the most important thing to remember is that AI isn't like some far-off thing anymore. It's here, it's changing fast, and it's already having a big impact on our world.
Yeah.
So we need to be aware of it, understand what it can do, and really think about what it means for us and, for society as a whole.
So it's not just about sitting back and watching the robots take over. It's about being part of the conversation and making sure our voices are heard.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI. The more we know and the more we talk about it, the better we'll be able to handle all the exciting and sometimes maybe a little scary possibilities that are coming our way.
Well said. And speaking of the future, what's one thought-provoking question you'd leave our listeners with as they navigate this increasingly AI-powered world?
As AI systems keep getting smarter and smarter, the question we should all be asking ourselves is, how can we make sure that AI is making our lives better without taking away our privacy and our freedom to make our own choices?
That's a really important question. I mean, we all want the benefits of AI, right? The convenience, the personalization, the ability to solve some of the world's toughest problems, but not if it means giving up our basic rights and freedoms.
It's a balancing act, for sure. We need to be proactive in shaping how AI is developed and used, making sure it reflects our values and ultimately benefits humanity.
So it's about being informed, being engaged, and maybe even a little bit skeptical. Not just accepting any new AI tool that comes along, but really thinking about how it could affect our lives and making conscious decisions about how we use these technologies.
Absolutely. Remember, you always have a choice. Question everything, ask for transparency, and make sure you understand what you're getting into.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for being here and sharing your expertise.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations.
And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on AI? Have you had any interesting encounters with AI lately? Share your stories, your hopes, your concerns. Let's keep this conversation going.
The future of AI is being shaped right now, and we're all part of it.
Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.